Now, we've all faced off against levels in video games that were just too damn hard. They just went far beyond our abilities, so much so that we had to summon someone else to help or rely on a cheat code or maybe just cry a little about it, throw the game away. Anyway, and then there are those games which actually removed problematic levels before they reached players, ditching aspects of the game which the dev team and QA testers themselves clearly struggled with. So let's have a chat about them today, as I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game levels removed for being too hard. Number 10. Dam, the original version, GoldenEye 007. GoldenEye 007's opening Dam level is downright iconic, offering up a snappy introduction to the shooter's various gameplay systems while leading up to the single most memorable visual from the movie, which is 007 bungee jumping from the top of a dam. But Rare's original version of the level was quite different, as confirmed by countless unused assets that were discovered by fans within the game's code. Even on the highest difficulty level, the dam only has 4 main mission objectives, though the original version apparently was considerably more involved, with almost double the number of things to do. Players were tasked with, among other things, commandeering a boat, driving it out to a nearby island, destroying a machine situated there, and, as it's been speculated on, even acquiring the bungee gear for the climactic jump. But the developers ultimately decided that this was all too complicated for what was supposed to be a breezy introductory level for players, and so it was streamlined into the considerably simpler affair that we ended up with. Number 9. Gamora's Third Floor, Fallout New Vegas. Time for a quite literally cut level now in Fallout New Vegas. Now, players will be familiar with the Gamora Hotel and Casino, the hotbed of debauchery which can be found on the New Vegas Strip. But did you know that it originally had an extra accessible floor? Well, during development, Bethesda coded the labyrinthine hotel to have a third level, though ultimately decided that it made an already maze-like location far too complicated to navigate, and above all else wasn't that much fun for players. New Vegas director Josh Sawyer himself said that the shipped version of Gamora was already large and challenging enough to get through, and that this planned third floor actually detracted from the experience. So the decision was made to cut it entirely. Given that Gamora is already one of the most divisive locales in the entire game, if not the entire Fallout franchise, largely due to its confusing level design, it was probably for the best that Obsidian didn't add any more layers of complexity. Number 8. Mission 4.5, Homeworld. Prior to the release of a legendary RTS Homeworld, a promotional demo disc was released called Homeworld Raider Retreat, which featured the game's first 4 missions as well as an additional 5th mission that was actually cut from the final game. This mission saw players attack the Turanic Raiders' base of operations, though according to reports, beta testers complained that the level was far too difficult, especially for such an early stage of the game. And so, rather than rebalance the level's difficulty, developer Relic Entertainment simply removed it entirely, feeling that it wasn't a necessary component of the game's overall story. However, curious fans were placated when 2015's Homeworld Remastered restored the cut level, adding it in as an extra level unrelated to the main campaign, with the only condition being that players first beat the game's opening 4 levels. And unsurprisingly, upon the remaster's release, social media was quickly overrun with fans noticing how ludicrously difficult that level was. Did anyone not see this coming? Number 7. Mile High Club, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare's most infamous level isn't actually in the game. Well, not really. You see, after beating the game, players are able to play a special epilogue mission called Mile High Club, which involves shooting your way through a double-decker aircraft in order to secure a VIP within a set time limit. Mile High Club is infamous for its high level of challenge, especially on veteran difficulty, and as it turns out, it was actually originally supposed to be an early level in the proper campaign. Cut dialogue from the mission identifies the VIP as a character called Kriegler, whose name is visible on the cargo ship in the game's second mission, Crew Expendable, seemingly identifying him as the ship's owner. And so it absolutely makes sense that Mile High Club originally led directly into Crew Expendable, with the team capturing Kriegler to ascertain the location of his ship. But because Infinity Ward felt the mission was too challenging for such an early point in the game, it was relegated to an unlockable extra. Number 6. Level 4, Robocop. And now we have the most curious case of 1988's video game adaptation of Paul Verhoeven's brilliant 1987 Robocop movie. The Commodore 64 version of the game is somewhat infamous for Ocean Software's decision to effectively delete the bloody back end of it. You see, during the game's rush development, Ocean discovered that Robocop's 4th level had a game-breaking bug. Once you reach a certain point, the environment glitches out into a mess of tiles, preventing you from progressing any further. But rather than fix the issue, a time-strapped Ocean came up with the hilariously cheeky solution, which is to add some ludicrously tight timers to each mission, making it unlikely that players would get anywhere near level 4 anyway. To be extra sure though, the extra timer for the 3rd level was made an entire minute shorter than the timers for the first 2 levels, making it basically impossible for anyone to beat it the hard way. But that didn't stop players from discovering a glitch which allowed them to bypass most of the level, and that's when the truth was laid bare. That Ocean had held level 4 at arm's length from players because they weren't able to fix it in time for release. And I tell you what, we complain about day 1 patches today. Number 5. The Path to Malice, Shadow of the Colossus. Much has been written about the eye-watering amount of content that was cut from Shadow of the Colossus. After all, this epic adventure game originally started out with concepts for 48 different colossi, as was ultimately boiled down to the 16 we got in the final release. But in addition to the bosses getting the chop, select locales in the game were also removed, and one of them was actually a pretty pivotal area near the very end of the game. In order to reach the 16th and final Colossus, Malice, players had to run through tunnels and hide behind walls to avoid the boss's energy projectiles. It's basically a linear path where there's little chance of players getting lost, but that wasn't always the way. Originally, the lead up to the fight was considerably trickier, with players having to essentially navigate a labyrinth of tunnels and passageways in order to get to him. However, Team Ico apparently decided that this was too complex, and so boiled it down to a more straightforward obstacle course. Given that Malice is a plenty challenging boss in its own right, it was probably the right call to tone down the prelude somewhat. Number 4. Hidden Palace Zone, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Hidden Palace Zone was a level originally created for Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and even featured prominently in pre-release marketing for the hugely anticipated platformer sequel. Set in an underground cavern, Hidden Palace Zone was intended to be a secret stage accessed through the Mystic Cave Zone by obtaining Chaos Emeralds, where Sonic would then learn how to become Super Sonic. Despite reportedly being a favorite level of artist Craig Stitt, Hidden Palace Zone was eventually cut late in production due to technical headaches relating to its implementation. Above all else, the team struggled with fitting the stage within the Mega Drive's memory limitations. At first, the level was cut down from 2 acts to 1, but mere days before Sonic 2's completion, it was decided to remove the level entirely owing to the ongoing technical issues. Though a leaked prototype cartridge later allowed fans to demo an incomplete version of the level, Hidden Palace Zone was eventually completed in earnest and included as part of the 2013 remaster of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Number 3. The White House, Deus Ex. It's relatively well known that a White House level was cut during development of the original Deus Ex, and though for literally decades it's been rumored that developer Ion Storm was pressured by the actual White House to remove the level for security reasons, that's not remotely true. The White House was actually the first level built for the game, but due to its complexity, ended up being cut because, according to the game director Warren Spector himself, it was too mechanically complex. Not for the players, but for the game engine itself. The size of the White House map, modeled off actual blueprints of the building, was ultimately too big to run in-engine to a satisfying degree. As a result, Spector would have needed to cut the White House into several smaller maps separated by loading screens, but given that this went against his dream of a seamless, single-level rendition of the iconic building, he cut the entire level instead. Though some assets created for the level remain in the game's code, namely chairs and other assorted furniture, passionate modders eventually decided to just build the White House level themselves, and the result of which is pretty damn impressive. Number 2. Stormy Ascent, Crash Bandicoot. In the original 1996 release of legendary platformer Crash Bandicoot, a secret level called Stormy Ascent could be accessed only by using a cheating device such as a Game Shark. This is because Naughty Dog cut the level from the game due to its maddeningly high difficulty level, as well as its length and number of bugs which the developer couldn't fix in time for launch. Stormy Ascent is basically a harder iteration of arguably the core game's most difficult level, Slippery Climb, where you're tasked with scaling the side of a castle whilst facing off against countless obstacles. Stormy Ascent just throws more of everything at you while requiring split-second reflexes and punishing you for even the smallest of mistakes. Numerous Naughty Dog employees have publicly lamented the level's removal from the original game, noting the immense amount of work that actually went into making it. However, for 2017's Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy remake project, Stormy Ascent was restored as a DLC level, allowing fans both new and old to appreciate just how brutally difficult it actually is. And number 1, Heat Level 10, Need for Speed Most Wanted. The 2005 version of Need for Speed Most Wanted has heat levels to indicate just how wanted the player is by the police, ranging from level 1 to level 6 during conventional play, though owners of the game's special Black Edition can actually get it up to level 7. Naturally, the higher your heat level, the more aggressively you're going to be pursued by the cops, and those bold enough to brace level 7 probably aren't going to last very long against every dirty trick the Popo pulls out. But it originally went even harder than this, going all the way up to level 10, where multiple versions of Sergeant Jonathan Cross would chase you down, in addition to a helicopter continually pursuing you. Yet EA eventually surmised that Heat Level 10 was a basically silly level of challenge, and that level 7 was enough, so it stopped there. Still, that hasn't stopped fans modding these brutal higher heat levels back into the game and even designing their own comically difficult heat levels. You'll love to see it. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 video game levels removed for being too hard. I hope that you enjoyed that and let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Blue Sky where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. Hope you're treating yourself well, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye.